Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Ventura County Planning Commission for January 10th. If you'd please rise and face the American flag. Place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Molitor?
Present.
Commissioner Dukas?
Here.
Commissioner Westner?
Present.
Commissioner Bartels?
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here.
Not one yo in the crowd. All right. This is the public comments section, item number 4 on the agenda. This is time set aside for the public to bring anything to the Planning Commission's attention that is not already on the agenda. Please be advised, under the government code known as the Brown Act, we can receive the information, but we cannot act upon it. So is there anybody here that would like to make a comment not already on the agenda? Seeing none, let the record reflect there is no one. Our next item is the appeal number AP 070012. And let me explain a little protocol, because it's going to be a little confusing. The way procedure has been laid out, and that we will have a staff report that's presented to us, and any updating of materials that the staff wishes to present to us. The commission then will ask questions at that time based on the information we have received from them. At that time, if the commission is complete talking to staff, then we will open the public hearing. Now, the public hearing today is an appeal. So the appellant goes first, because that's what we're going on, is an appeal of a previous decision. So therefore, Mr. Gaz will be allowed to speak. Mr. Gaz, as the appellant, will be given quite a bit of latitude as far as time to present his position. At that time, everybody supporting the appeal to deny the project, in other words, you're in favor of the appeal, will speak after Mr. Gaz. So I know some of you are probably a little confused how you mark this, but if you oppose the lot line adjustment, I'm taking that you support the appeal to deny. Everybody got this clear? All right, it's clear as mud. Right, okay. Then those that support the denial of the appeal, in other words, you support the lot line adjustment, will then follow, because that would be against the appeal, and that's the procedure that we have established by the Board of Supervisors. At that time, then the appellant will be given an opportunity to rebut or make a further statement at the very end. At that time, we will ask the staff or any of our support personnel present, county council or whatever, for additional information or questions that the commission may have. At that time, if everybody has said everything they need to say, presented all the evidence they want to present, we will close the public hearing and the commission will deliberate and make their decision. Okay? And if I lose track, somebody please help me. Okay? So at this time, I would like to call forward our case planner, Lori Baker. Lori? I caught you taking a swallow, didn't I?
I wonder if I should lean over. Is this loud enough? Does it sound good? I'll make sure to keep that.
So far, thank you.
So far, so good. Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. And as we covered, this is, well, first of all, this is a continuance from the December 20th, 2007 hearing. It was continued for various reasons, and so we're here today. And this is an appeal of a lot line adjustment, SD 060062. And that appeal, well, first of all, the lot line adjustment was filed in October of 2006, and subsequent to this, an environmental review was including the preparation of a negative declaration under the California Environmental Quality Act was prepared, and public review and comments were received for this, and subsequently we had a planning director hearing that was on September 17th, 2007. The planning director approved the project following that date, and during the appeal period, the item was appealed, as we know, by the appellant, Lou Gaz, on September 24th, 2007. So, the grounds of the appeal and our planning division response to the appeal, which is recommendation of denial of the appeal, is forthcoming. But I just wanted to make sure that you had before you the Planning Division memorandum submitted today's date, and it covers 2 items. It does cover, one item is a letter from the City of Thousand Oaks that was submitted about a few days ago. It has to do with the deck on the side of the house, on the south side of the house, and a concern regarding architectural features. And the other item has to do with the negative declaration the draft negative declaration that we prepared, and the recognition by staff that we omitted an item in the project, in the description of the environmental impacts, like an informational item, which is that the deck does need to be demolished to accommodate a side yard setback from the new proposed lot line. So when the lot line moves, the deck that's there would be in the 5-yard setback, side yard setback that's required by ordinance. So that would need to be, that will need to be corrected in writing, assuming the project is approved, if it is approved. So, and that is described in your memorandum. So with that, I'm going to commence my presentation, and hopefully this works. You can all hear me fine, everybody? Okay, so the project is located about a mile south of US Highway 101 and just about a half mile south of Lynn Road in the Ventura Park area. This is kind of an overview of the development area. In yellow at the bottom right hand, you can see the approximate location of 426 McKnight Road, where the project's proposed. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to just point out is notice to the east, there's a lot of natural area, open space just to the east of the project site. So this sketch gives you a sense of the general plan designation in the area. It's existing community urban reserve, and also it does show you the zoning. The parcels in question, there are 2 lots involved, and the larger kind of rectangular shaped parcel in purple there is zoned RA1, which is a 1-acre minimum lot size in that area. Both of these parcels, you should know, are less than 1 acre. They're non-conforming as to size, yet they're legal lots. So they have all full development rights as legal lots. The parcel, the lot just east of the larger parcel is zoned RA1, and that's again 1 acre minimum, and also SRP, which is Scenic Resource Protection Overlay, and that has its own guidelines and requirements and this potential discretionary review associated with it. So the project on appeal, again, is a 2-lot line adjustment. So I want to just from the outset make clear that a 2-lot lot line adjustment is not the creation of any new parcels. You have 2 lots to begin with, and you end with 2 lots. It's merely the adjustment of lot lines. This is discretionary because of the non-conforming sizes we discussed, or as I explained. However, environmental review was called for this project because the lots exceed 20% slopes, and under CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, that necessitates environmental review. Just clarification. So the lots are about 1,400 square feet, one of them, and the other one's about 9,600 square feet. And so this just gives you kind of a zoomed-in version. You can kind of see in the center of the screen there, you see the lots as they were shown before. You can also see to the east the undeveloped area. And again, they'll be reconfigured. They're going to be approximately equal in size under the reconfiguration. So they'll have about the same square footage. And getting a little bit closer, you can see that this is giving you a sense of the proposed lot line adjustment. So as we saw before, right, the lot line right now is north to south between the 2 parcels. And the parcel to the east, it should be noted, is in what is like a ravine. It drops off and comes back up. So it's kind of a steep slopes in that location. So under the lot line adjustment proposed, the lot line will move from a north-south orientation to an east-west orientation alongside the existing residence as it is right there. And again, you might now understand the issue with the side yard setback. They would need to demolish, and you'll see some pictures, they'll need to demolish a portion of the deck to make sure that the lot lines meet their setbacks. This is just a technical drawing. There are a lot of lines, not to confuse you, but it just gives you, again, the exact sketch and dimensions of the lot lines moving. Actually, it's just one lot line moving. Okay, additional project components you should be aware of is that there is a proposed biological restrictive covenant that will apply to the project. It'll be on the eastern half of proposed adjusted parcel 2, which is the undeveloped location. So that would have a restrictive covenant that the applicant offered up in the beginning of the project review to avoid any potential resources that may exist in the more undeveloped, the natural area that's to the east. So the other item is, again, like we've talked about a few times, the deck demolition would be necessary to accommodate that adjustment. So this shows you the restrictive covenant area in the hatched location, again, in that kind of more natural ravine area. And this might confuse you. There is no structure in that undeveloped lot there. That's just an RV, I think, caught in the imagery. Oh, the lighting's kind of bright, so it's hard to see. This is the existing residence, more northerly portion of the existing residence, just for your reference. And you can see kind of a nice view off of there into Thousand Oaks. This is moving just a little bit more south. This is where that deck is, and then looking to the side yard that exists right now of the existing residence. This is awful lighting, so I'm sorry. This is looking now north again, back into Thousand Oaks, to give you some perspective. This is looking more south towards the Gauze residence right next door, and this is the area at which the proposed lot line adjustment would be located, and the new lot would be located there with a potential future residence. And this is just another perspective. And then this is the Gauze residence. Again, not a good picture. You can kind of see the little retaining wall separating the properties. This is the back portion that we're trying, that the lot line adjustment, or the restrictive covenant is trying to keep development out of, would keep development out of. And that just gives you a little sense of what that looks like. So now we're getting into the grounds of appeal. There are about 4 items. There are a few assorted items within each, but there are about 4 items specifically that the appellant has raised and staff has responded to. The first item has to do with the lot width in the of this, the resultant lots. The appellant states that the present lot width and housing pattern on McKnight, would not match the lot widths that would be created under the lot line adjustment. And the situation really is that the Subdivision Map Act, or the subdivision ordinance, I say. It's not going forward. There we go. The subdivision ordinance requires a minimum 40-foot lot width to allow for a lot line adjustment. You have to have at least 40 feet. This lot does meet that requirement at 43 feet. So, and with the inclusion of the required side, front, and rear yard setbacks, there is adequate space to locate a residence, albeit it would probably need to be 2-story in order to actually fit in a decent-sized home with a garage and everything and all the setbacks from the street. But all the rights, privileges, and constraints would apply to this lot like any other lot in the community. The other thing that the appellant raised has to do with the zoning, and this was, I believe, a mistaken understanding of what the zoning means. RA1, again, is 1 acre minimum lot size. And I think the appellant believed that the lot size minimum was 10,000 square feet, and that's just not the case. So again, and everyone acknowledges that this is a non-conforming SSI's lot to begin with. So we have discretionary review no matter what you do. So so I covered that. And now the other item on item 2 that the appellant has raised has concern regarding the density requirements of the Thousand Oaks area plan that applies to this parcel. The density requirement is 2 to 4 dwelling units an acre, but I should just say right off the bat that the situation here is there's no subdivision occurring in terms of creation of new parcels. So this sort of concern doesn't apply unless you're actually creating new lots, new density. The density is not changing. You have the potential for 1 residence or the potential for 1 residence. There's no change in that regard. So this response just describes that situation. The appellant's other grounds of appeal has concern regarding the omission in the negative declaration of a discussion about the removal of the deck. That was the case, and as you have in your memorandum, it's not going. And again, this is the lot line just showing that location they're talking about, and the deck, another picture. So post-circulation, we realized this, and as your memorandum describes, that has been acknowledged, but we believe that the environmental impacts have not changed. There's no new environmental impacts as a result of removing the deck from the house. You could get a demolition permit right now to do it. And in fact, for the record, the applicant did obtain a demolition permit. Has not yet demolished the deck, but has already obtained that because legally he can. If he wants to demolish the entire house, he could right now. So, and this is something regarding recirculation of the negative declaration that would not be required as a result of this omission. The omission can be incorporated into the record now and can hold because under CEQA section 15073.5 C4, you can not recirculate the document as long as the information that you added only clarifies, amplifies, or makes a very insignificant modification to the negative declaration, and that is the case in this case. Okay, and then the other item that the appellant raised has to do with potential future development along McKnight dwarfing existing development and a concern, I believe, about their residents being dwarfed by this potential two-story residence. I believe both sides of the potential proposed adjusted lot 2 that we're talking about have two-story residences. This would be not as spread out. It would probably have to be a lot more condensed because of the setback requirements. However, I was just showing that again. However, the Ventura Park area is characterized by dense development. There are houses located along the road, up and down the neighborhood there. It's quite tight, really. And the other thing that the applicant has done, as he's proposed a restrictive covenant to stay out of a more environmentally sensitive area to avoid impacts there, and as a result, he's limited his size of development. So, you know, staying out of there has also precluded the space that he might have had if he just had it all open. So. And the ordinance doesn't provide protection of private view sheds. That's the other thing to remember. Public view sheds would be a consideration under the environmental review process. That certainly would be acknowledged. But in this case, it is a private view that's being affected, and that could be affected. Not for sure, but a private view could be affected by this. And so that we don't provide for. And again, the proposed new development, if the proposed lot line adjustment and pending possible future development, that would not circumvent the requirements of the ordinance. I mean, the ordinance would have to be complied with no matter what. So the applicant would not get around that situation. So the other item is concern regarding parking on McKnight Road. The applicant and many neighbors have expressed concern about parking in that area. It's very congested, and I think there are some difficulties in that location. And the thing is, the parking situation is not changing. If a residence was constructed on proposed adjusted lot 2, they would need to have on-site parking, a garage that contains the development that's required by the ordinance. So as far as residential parking, that would be accommodated on-site. Any incidental off-site parking, like anyone else in the neighborhood, would be subject to any parking regulations that would apply. So, you know, everyone has the same requirements. This project is no different than any of the neighbors. And again, the negative declaration was prepared, and the environmental impacts were considered less than significant. And these are the following recommended actions. I think County Council has something to add to that, but the recommended actions are, as you see, deny the appeal and find that no substantial evidence exists in light of the record that there is a significant environmental impact, and approve and adopt the negative declaration, find the subject conditions of approval set forth conform to the county general plan, the Thousand Oaks area plan, the subdivision ordinance, and the county non-coastal zoning ordinance, and approve the proposed lot line adjustment, and designate the planning director to be the trustee of the record proceedings. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Left to right, we'll stop. Commissioner Molitor.
Thank you, Laurie, for a fine presentation. I have just two general questions. First question is, why did the applicant want to change this lot line anyway? What was the basic fundamental reason for him coming to us to change the lot line?
Commissioner Moltar, the applicant is not obligated to describe his intentions for why you lot line adjust. That's not a requirement of application submittal. I don't want to speculate. I don't believe I even asked. I think it's just, usually there's various reasons people lot line adjust. Often it's to provide for a better development site, something that's flatter perhaps. There could be other issues. Some people they want to get access to water. In this case, I honestly don't know the reason. You might want to ask the applicant that, but that is not required of the planning. We don't require that disclosure.
May I ask the applicant that when he speaks? Why he's asking for a lot line adjustment?
Well, it's not really within your purview of your decision making. You're looking at the standards, and you're going to apply the standards to determine whether or not you should approve this appeal or deny it. and the standards.
So I can't determine what his intent was.
Well, I mean, you can ask him. I don't know whether he's not really complied to answer. It's not
Okay.
a requirement that it's not a standard, for example, that you could deny this based on the fact that he didn't disclose the reasons.
Okay, thank you. And my other question, Laurie, is from what you've stated and from what I've read, this lot line adjustment could not result in more housing units than would be placed on this property prior to the lot line adjustment. Do you understand that question?
Yes, I understand. And no, there would be no increased density as a result of the project. One house could be built on the existing lot. There's already an existing house on one lot, so I'm focused on the one that's undeveloped, the vacant lot, proposed adjusted parcel 2. And the existing parcel 2, the way it is now, they could build. They could withdraw the project. They could go and build right now. And they could get an over-the-counter permit. And under the lot line adjustment, they could build a house as well. So there's no increase. There's no space for a second dwelling unit. And there's no provision for a second dwelling unit in this zoning, in this parcel size, for this parcel size as it is, now or after the lot line adjustment. So no increased density would be provided.
So what you're saying is, if we didn't have a lot line adjustment, he could still build a house on the other lot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dukas?
Could you bring up the aerial photo again? I think it was the third slide.
Oh no. I didn't mean to do that. Thank
The close-up one with the red line around.
Okay. Getting there. Not that one. That one. Is that-
Yes. Parcel 2. I see the proposed lot line adjustment. Could you indicate with the little pointer where the existing?
Lot line?
Yes.
Okay, let's see how this, oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. Okay. If it even works first. Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. I apologize. Okay. So, I'm not seeing it up here. It's not projecting.
Did our battery budget get cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the
took it out of
existing
your
lot line goes up and down, north and south, right here, right about there. And then this is, of course, the adjusted line. This is the only line moving.
Okay. Could you do that again so that everybody can see that?
So the lot
All
line,
right.
yeah.
So a house could be developed on that parcel 2 presently?
Yes. Okay. Right now, this is a legal lot. The lot, this being parcel 2, existing parcel 2, it's a legal lot, and because it's a legal lot, it has all the development rights of any legal lot, period. And granted, there are some steeper slopes in that location, but they have the right to develop, and if they can build it, they can build it. So they just have to get approval from other departments for whatever building and safety or things like that, geotechnical. But just down from here, there's another house being built in the similar location. And, it's a legal lot, so you can build there.
And that existing legal lot is somewhere around 5,000 square feet?
It's about 4,000, right? 4,300, I think. I'd have to go back and double check.
But it's a legal non-conforming lot in an area that's zoned for 1-acre lots.
Yes.
Did I hear you right that there needs to be a 5-yard setback?
5 foot.
Was it 5 yard or 5?
Oh, I'm sorry. Must have 5-foot side yard setback. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry. Oh.
That sounds reasonable. I thought, whoa, 5 yards setback.
Sorry.
Firemen are getting bigger.
So if we were to deny the appeal and the lot line adjustment went forward, we'd have we'd have a different lot with a 43-foot wide lot with 5-foot setbacks.
What I'd like to clarify actually is at its narrowest, it's 43 feet wide, which is about right where the existing lot line is now. It's about 43 feet from here down. And then actually in the front, though, it's 47 feet, I should clarify. So from the front yard setback, they need a 20-foot front yard setback from the street. They need 5-foot side yard setbacks. In the instance of the rear, it won't matter because it is 15 feet, but because of the proposed restrictive covenant that would start about where the existing lot line is and back, they wouldn't even come close to the rear. So it's more about the sides being 5 feet required and 20 feet from the front, the right-of-way of the road, that is.
And that 47-foot wide at its widest part at the street and those 5-foot setbacks, are those 5 feet on each side?
Yes, 5 feet on each side would be required.
And then a house could start, a structure could start. Like,
As long as they fit into that box, they can, they can do that. They would be able to do that.
so 37 feet wide. And then as far as square footage of the house, is there any guideline about the square footage of the house on that 37-foot wide?
Well, I think a lot of beach houses are often.
It's just what can be fit within the envelope, which
Yeah.
is not only 5-foot setbacks on the side, 20 in the front, 15 in the rear. There's also a height requirement. And you can go up to 25 feet, except in the case of a pitched roof and blah, blah, blah. I mean, there are ways, the code defines how high. So they have a building box, as Lori described, and whatever they can fit inside that. Could be approved ministerially.
I can attest to the fact that a house of relatively normal size could fit there. It would just, likely have to be 2-story to fit, and they just need to stay. They would need to stay at.
That's
25 feet.
that's very interesting, but that's not the question that I'm about to ask.
Okay.
What's if you were going to develop that, if you were to develop a house on that property, what would be the maximum square footage that could theoretically, with the 5-foot setbacks and the 20-foot setback and the 25-foot high and the 15 setback, what kind of square footage could you get?
I don't think that we can really answer that question because we don't have that much information available to us. I mean, if we had a calculator, I suppose you could figure out, but it's the height question that gets
Yeah, I
you
thought it was about
tricky.
3,000. Yeah,
It's about 3,000 square feet.
I'd like to say I did calculate a rough estimate. It was about 3,000 square feet. And the other thing, though, is in terms of one of the requirements of the ordinance is that you cannot exceed. There's a lot coverage maximum. They would not even begin to reach because they're not building on half of the rear part of the lot. So they would not in any way exceed the lot coverage requirements if that might be what you're getting at. Because
No,
the back
how
half
about how about instead of trying to anticipate what I'm going to ask, if I just ask them and
maybe I
have
misunderstood
them
your
and have
inquiry.
them answer. What are the other houses in the area's square footage? What would you say the average, and what are the ranges of housing sizes in that area?
Well, I think they vary, but
We don't have that information readily available. We would have to do a kind of an inventory through the assessor's office to find out.
Okay. And then on another matter entirely, do you have exhibits A, B, A and B?
This is Nancy Francis. I don't believe Lori has those. I was provided a copy of each of those.
I do have A.
And do you have B?
I don't have it before me right now, no. Was that submitted this morning?
Yes.
Yes.
If you have a question, I would
We
try to
could,
respond.
maybe during as the hearing goes on, you can come back and answer some questions about those two exhibits.
Yeah, Nancy Francis may be able, if she's been able to peruse that document, she might be able to respond for you right now. Do you want to ask your question? And see?
No, I'll wait until, I'm sure someone will present it more, and then we can take it as it comes instead of trying to anticipate. Thank you.
Any further questions?
That's
Chair
it.
Wessner, I'm sorry, may I ask one more question while that slide is up there?
Certainly.
If the lot line adjustment were not made and the existing lot line, which you showed us on the red, that lot is completely isolated. How would you get access to the street?
There is a mapped road that is located in the very eastern portion of existing parcel 2, and it runs through, it's a map road that was created in the old subdivision, so there is access.
There's a map road back in that thing because it declines toward the back. So there's a map road. Is it a paved road? Is it a public street?
It's a mapped road for the subdivision. The other thing is the applicant would, in theory, as long as it's under the same ownership or he arranges with maybe a potential future buyer, he could there could be an easement created over the existing parcel 1 to parcel 2. I mean, there's a couple avenues, but there is a mapped road.
Now, the map road provides what we call legal access. It shows that there is a road there. It's a paper road. It's never been developed. We don't anticipate it ever will be. Actual access is what the fire department is going to require, and that would probably, all likelihood, be provided by an easement across parcel 1 to parcel 2. The owner cannot grant himself an easement at this point, but at any time he were to sell the parcel, he would grant an easement to the back.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Weston.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Laura, you showed a slide of the parcel in question and a side photo, I guess, of the vacant part of that lot. Can you bring that up again?
Yes. This is slow, I'm sorry. Well, there's one angle, and this is looking.
There was another picture.
This was looking back towards the house, and
That
this is a little bit
picture,
more.
that picture right there. I see shrubbery, trees, or something. Are those within the parcel we're talking about, or are those on the appellant's property?
Oh, are you referring? Okay, sorry. let me get
Between the
pointer.
house and the RV.
Between this house?
Yeah, that shrubbery.
Oh, yeah, this I believe is on the appellant's property. I think they might be able to speak to that. It looks like, I think there's a few trees, as I recall from some of the other photographs, there's one additional.
Okay.
There's a tree on the, yeah, this looks like the applicant's tree.
Okay.
I'm not certain of the species, but, yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bartels, any questions at this time? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. At this time, I'll ask any of the commissioners for disclosures on this matter. Commissioner Molitor,
I have no disclosures.
Commissioner Dukas.
The only disclosure that I have is that I noticed an attorney, there's an attorney's letter in the packet by Mark Sellers. Mark Sellers was the city attorney for the city of Thousand Oaks at the same time that I was planning commissioner there.
Okay, I don't think that's a conflict in any sense. Thank you. Commissioner Bartels.
I drove up and looked at the site.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Many years ago, I would have occasion to drive on that road, and I'm familiar with the area. And actually, I Googled it last night to get an aerial view of what it looked like.
Okay.
So I have a picture here of what it looks like.
This is back when you were a young deputy sheriff, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So we know how many years that it was. Chair has no disclosures other than just being generally familiar with the area. Okay, any additional comments or questions from staff? If not, then I will open the public hearing. And as I stated earlier, the appellant will go first. So that will be Mr. Lou Gaz. Following him will be Deanna Gaz if she wants to talk. And then it will be Richard Gaz. And then I have a John, and I apologize, then Ben Hauer. Is that correct? Okay. And then the applicant, James Sweeney. Okay. So when you come forward, please state your name and your address for the record because this is being recorded. So, Mr. Lou Gaz.
Lou Gaz, 452 McKnight Road.
Good morning.
To the south side. And I'm most affected by this.
Mr. Gaz, could you speak closer to the microphone or talk to us as if the microphones weren't there?
All right. On the lot with the average neighborhood is 95 square foot, or 90 feet frontage for the average width in the neighborhood. Some are 125 feet, some are 100 feet, and the average is 95 foot, and this proposed lot is only 42.6
I'm
foot
sorry,
wide.
sir, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I am too. Would you speak a little louder, please?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We had a petition signed in the neighborhood and by over 40 people that are opposed because of the width of the proposed lot line adjustment, and that's on pages 89 and 90, and it's never mentioned. And also, we're under the view shed of UR4 in the city of Thousand Oaks, and there's really no mention of that. And under the UR4, the density is 2 to 4 dwellings per unit acre. So if you calculate 43,000 square feet per acre, that means that you should only have 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. And this would exceed that requirement. And on the, we get back to the deck, you know, first it was called a patio cover, then they called it a deck, and it's really a covered deck. And to remove, you have to remove over 360 square foot of roof and 360 square foot of deck to achieve the side setbacks. So you're removing, you know, 720 square feet on a 2,000 square foot building. 2,080 square foot building, and there's nowhere mentioned anywhere in any of the general plan or the non-coastal zoning ordinance where it's okay to demolish part of a structure to achieve your setbacks. There's nowhere anywhere that states that you can do that. And that's even in the map waivers 8202-3. There's nothing stated or mentioned about the setback where you can demolish part of a building to achieve your goal. The staff report states the findings regarding potential impacts is in the negative declaration would remain unchanged. The report has, the staff, the negative declaration said there was no modifications required to a building no modifications required to a building. So the negative declaration is incorrect. And and this lot line adjustment, it's a dramatic, it's not a standard lot line adjustment. It's more involved than just, you know, moving the line from the rear of the initial, what they're doing is, and moving it around. It's not consistent with the properties in the area. Most of the lots are 25-foot increments. And the city of Thousand Oaks was informed that it was a patio cover initially, and they did not really approve, as stated in the staff argument. They did not really approve that. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Gass? Commissioner Mulder?
Is your property adjacent to this?
We're on the south side.
You're on the south side. How long have you lived at that residence?
Since for 30 years.
30 years. When you purchased your property, were you aware that there could be building on those lots?
When we purchased, we never dreamed that there would be an existing, we thought the existing structure would be, and our neighborhood would remain the same. And also, I could have purchased the 240 and 250 lot, and at the time, I let the neighbor, because it would square his property. I was under the influence that once he bought that, it would be part of that parcel. It would be joined automatically. And so I let him buy them. And these are paper lots, and they at one time, I could have purchased them because they were letting them go for back taxes. They didn't want them because they were not accessible, and people were paying taxes on them. There was a Carmona family in Oxnard that I purchased one because we were being sued at one time for because they said it was after the rains that we were eroding their property, and so that's how I start checking into the lots back there and to purchase them.
So, but you were aware that those lots could hold dwellings.
No.
You didn't think they were, even though they were legal
never
lots?
What I dreamed. They were all landscaped, and the reason why the previous owner wanted to put a pool in, so that's how this started. They start clearing the lot, but I never dreamed ever that there would be a structure there between our house.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dukas?
You said that the average frontage is 95 feet, and they range anywhere from 100 to 125?
120. Most of them are 75 foot. There is one house down the street that's 50-foot wide lot, and it's a very, very small house, and it's currently dwarfed by a new house to the south side.
Is that 50-foot wide? Is that recent? Or-
Well, the 50-foot wide house has been there.
It's been there a long time?
It's been there probably 30, 40 years.
Okay. When you said UR4, you mean urban reserve?
Urban residential 4.
Residential.
And there's no mention anywhere, and the lot breakdown is more detailed than the general ordinances and plans.
And are you aware of how many other properties have this same situation where there are these old paper lots? You said that you had one available to you and someone else.
Yeah, in our rear, there's...
Do you know how many there are? How many other properties have this?
Well, there's several. I don't know how many. To the rear, they're all basically not accessible.
And were you aware that the Thousand Oaks planner did email? Did you see this recent email from
Yes, I got a
Claudia?
copy.
Okay, regarding demolishing the deck. Is your objection to that? I mean, surely anybody can understand that the house can be torn down and something else.
Right.
But at any time, lot adjustment, no lot adjustment, people
Right.
remodel
I
their houses
understand,
all the
yeah.
time. But is your objection that they're getting the lot adjustment first, then
Well, you have to have
they're
a-
tearing down the deck? What's your objection?
Well, to build a structure there now, you have to have the lot line adjustment done. If you don't have the lot line adjustment, then you can't build a structure. You could build a second dwelling probably on one property, but I think it's more like a granny flat or something smaller.
I don't think I made myself clear. What was your objection? I'm trying to follow what your objection was to the tearing down of the covered deck.
Well, you have to do the modification to have enough clearance to build a structure to get your 40-foot requirement.
But
It can't be done unless it's demolished. In other words, they can't. Well, I have a better picture here, maybe I'd like to share with you.
Please be advised, if that's entered, it's kept part of the record, so if that's your only copy, we can certainly get you another copy. This is now part of the record.
This is significant to us if it's, this form was submitted in the original application for the lot line adjustment.
Okay, and please explain this exhibit to me.
Okay, you have the lot line adjustment. They're taking this line here and swinging it around and bringing it here. And the whole side of the house, 55 whatever running feet of deck and roof, have to be demolished to allow enough room for the 40-foot width lot.
Right, and that's been acknowledged, and that's been corrected, and it's understood. Is your objection that it has to happen after the lot line adjustment?
No, that has nothing to do. No, it's just that you shouldn't be able to get your allowable width to be allowed to demolish a structure to get enough room. There's never been a case that I know of previously where they've had to modify the existing building to get enough room to allow for another buildable site.
But he owns both parcels.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions of Mr. Gaz at this time? You will have another opportunity to speak, sir. Commissioner Rodriguez.
I have one question, I guess. If this issue wasn't in front of us and there was just a demolition occurring of the deck by the property owner, I guess my question would you be objecting to him removing the deck?
I'm not objecting to removing the deck. It's just
So the objection is because it would impact the proposed property line.
right, and it's making a non-conforming. It's going to be a non-conforming site with being only 40 foot wide. You're going to build a 3,200 square foot home, so it's going to be a narrow home. It's going to be 25 foot high.
Okay, thank you.
And it's
Any other questions, Mr. Gaz, this time? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ms. Gaz, you said you didn't know if you wanted to speak or not. That's all right. We'll consider you part of the appellant at that time. All right. Okay. Then I have a Richard Gaz who will be followed by John Van Benhauer. Your name and address, sir.
These are a little bit low. My name's Richard Gaz. I live at 3367 Henry Drive, Newberry Park. I've been a resident of Newberry Park for 44 years. We have three brothers here, myself, Lou, and Bob. And we're here to support Lou. And first I'd like to point out that we are under the 2007 California Building Code. So there are a lot of changes. And the one thing that comes out on that is that there is a definite 5-foot setback from the side property line. So that, in looking at the lot, which I would say where the house is going to be built, first let me back up and say I've been with the city of Thousand Oaks. I retired from there a few years ago, and I have 30 years experience in the building and safety department. So I'm very familiar with what's going on. I'm also a licensed civil engineer. If you look at the lot, if you say 32 feet or 33 feet, but where the building is, let's say 35 feet, and you take away 10, so that leaves you approximately, well, let's say if you average where the building's going to be 33, where the building would be, and you take away, you have a setback. To answer your question, Nora, as far as how big that building could be, I would assume a 20-foot front setback and a 20-foot rear yard setback, which would be from the front side of the unbuildable lot, which is the lot. The small lot is really an unbuildable lot because it's on a slope. Now, in approving this lot line adjustment, you have, first of all, which you can't talk about, loss of view and loss of value, property value because of the impact. The thing is the loss of privacy. They're going to put this, if they do put this building right next to theirs, that you're shooting down their privacy, and it's really an impact in the neighborhood because you have houses that look like San Francisco where they're side by side. And the email from Claudia, as far as her concerns, you shouldn't have to modify the house to make it work. And the roof of the covered, it's a covered deck, is an integral part of the house. So if you remove it, you're going to have what I would call an eyesore, or it's going to look like a patch job. And I'm sure the city of Thousand Oaks wouldn't, since they're under review as far as the impact, and they have they do a cursory plan check. They would have a problem with just a front of the building being flat. They'd have to do some decorations, but there still has to be a 5-foot setback on each side and that's why they have to cut back the roof. And that's not really going to look like, I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. The city now, as I said, is reviewing. And any structure would have to comply with the city of Thousand Oaks guidelines. In closing, I'd have to say there are fire issues too because of the density of adding another building. In closing, I'd say you may be in the letter of the law, but it may not be the right thing to do. You have to look beyond what the code allows. Thank you very much.
Questions of Richard? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your testimony. John, and I'm going to, for the third, tell me if I got it wrong. Then Ben Hauer.
John Nembenhauer, 465 South Gentoo Park Road.
Thank you.
The side of I'm on the corner, so therefore I have 100 feet on McKnight Road. I've lived in the area for 43 years. I've owned my house for 37 years. And this is wrong. I want one thing. Do you have this packet that we got with 114 or 15 pages? Because I have the pages for what I'm talking about here if you want to know. Plus the fact I gave you a 30-page deal.
It's called Exhibit A.
Okay.
As an apple.
All right. And I have those page numbers if you're interested in some information. Plus the fact there was a question asked, how many square feet is buildable. The street is 22 feet wide. Therefore, there's 11 feet of the property taken off on the street because it goes to the center of the street. There's a 20-foot setback. They have restricted any building from 97 feet from the back line of the other property, which is 9 feet into the present property. So therefore, they only do 75 feet. 75 feet times 33. I say 33 because the house is going to be built on the back section where the 43-foot dimension is, not in the middle of the street where the 47 dimension is. So it's 2,475 square feet. Okay. Living in that area this long, I rented a house from the Comptons and the Masons over on the other side of the ravine from where we are. It's still Ventu Park, and they had been here since the 20s. So I heard lots of stories about this area, and these lots were two brothers got permission to divide up this whole area into 25 wide by 115 deep. Only had a few triangular lots because Ventu Park Road was in there and it goes to the top of the mountain. So wherever it bent and twisted, that became a little triangle. Well, they started selling these lots as cabin sites. But the problem was, you went there to buy a lot and you weren't going to build right away. You got the title to some other place. They eventually went to jail for it. Then the Los Angeles Times came along and got control of some of these lots and gave them away as prizes for different things. And the building really started, there's quite a few houses up there that were built in 1930 or around a few years back and forth from that date. So when I got there in 65, that was before Thousand Oaks was even a city. And we had the choice of voting to incorporate along with Thousand Oaks, and we voted it down. So that's why, and then about 10 or 15 years later, they gave us another vote, and we voted that down also. Because we didn't want what was happening over in Thousand Oaks. Now, everything, this is rated as an RA zone. There isn't, except for one property, that was ever conforming to an RA zone. So we started off on the bad foot. And I don't even know why they called it RA, because it's not agricultural. You can't, you can only grow greasewood out there on the side of the mountain. We're on the side of a mountain. So anyway, so when the lot line says that non-conforming lots, every lot in the whole section is non-conforming, except for one section that was across the street from me, had 3 acres. And in the 70s, there was a person that wanted to build 5 houses on those 3 acres. And the planning department here turned them down and only let them build 3 houses on those 3 acres. But times have changed, people have changed in the planning department, and so now they're allowing, one thing that wasn't mentioned is all of these lots are merged lots. When in 1979, 78, our sewer systems started failing. We had septic tanks and cesspools and leach lines, and in fact, on Canyon Street on the other side, sewage was running down the middle of the dirt street. And so Ed Jones, who was in charge, our commissioner at the time, he started working on getting us sewers. Well, the lower part of Ventura Park had already gotten sewers below us, because the city, they had decided that they wanted sewers, and they joined the city to be able to get sewers, because the city said that they would not supply sewer systems to anybody that wasn't in the city. Well, when ours started failing, Mr. Jones started working on it, and he found out that they had used our population in our area to get a loan from the government to build a sewer plant. So we did not have to join the city. And so at the time, we had, in fact, about in the late 60s, the newspaper, local newspaper, said that we were the slum area of the Conejo Valley, because we had old houses, Quonset huts, trailers, lots of horses, and one elephant living in Newbury Park area. Well, since then, we don't have any more Quonset huts. We lost the elephant. Almost all the old horses have gone, and our area has really improved. And it no longer could be called a slum. In fact, it's one of the better parts of the Conejo Valley. But this project on 40-foot lot, a little bar house, is a step in the wrong direction. Almost every house around me that was built, and most of them were built after I bought mine, were built by owner builders, just like Mr. Swanee here. But they had plenty of land, and they built nice houses. And there's a lot of big, nice houses. Mine's still one of the old ones. I only have 900 some odd square feet. That porch that he's going to tear off is 1/3 the size of my house. So, and also through this document here, they keep talking about the maximum height is 25 feet. We've never had a problem on the side of the mountain. McKnight Road is one of the steepest streets in the area. And so a house next door that has plenty of room, it clears over. If you look at, we have some houses that have that 25-foot limit. If you looked at picture 13, that house is over 35 feet tall. But they measure the height of the house by the mean from the eave to the peak, and 25 feet is the midpoint. So you can have houses lot 4. That's why I put that picture in there with that 3 motorhomes, because Class C motorhome is only 10 feet tall, excluding the air conditioner. And so that's what you'll see there is 3 10-foot, 30 feet. They're sitting in front of Mr. Gaz's windows. So anyway, the sewer system started up, and our complaints were, there's a copy of a document in this package here of Ventura Park Association that was formed when they were putting in the sewer systems to tell the city and the county what we wanted. Because we didn't want anything like that was built down there in the city part of Ventura Park, because they used every inch to build a house on. And we didn't want that. We wanted the way ours was building up. And so that was one of our objections. We didn't want houses, people coming in and squeezing houses in between other houses. So they came up with this merger. And all the 170 lots that were accessible to the sewer were merged. 90 of them were still vacant lots, vacant properties. But they were merged at the time. And the merger paper is in my packet there, and you'll see that both the preliminary document before merging and the merging document, and they're all the same. That happened to be mine, but all they did was use the same document and keep putting different labels on the front of it for the different homes. This lot 1 that's in question up here is on that deal, and I have it. Lot 1. That's the main house with the house on it. That is in there as I think HH number 30. All right, and we were told I have it emphasized that those lots could not be unmerged. In fact, they sent us a document that said that there's a copy in that packet, and that document, word for word, is exactly like the document that you'll find upstairs in their pass-out deals that says that merged lots cannot be unmerged without a subdivision, new subdivision. And we're talking about a lot line adjustment here. And true, we fit the category because we're we don't conform, but a 40-foot lot in our area is an eyesore. And in closing, I'll mention something else about this. Anyway, let me check, make sure I haven't forgot anything before I hop over. All right. Now, on our area does say that it has 2 to 4 dwellings per acre is all that's allowed. We already have 4 houses on our acre. The 2 houses in front and the 2 houses across the street from each other. One of them's mine. That makes up an acre, or almost an acre. Actually, we're a little less than an acre. They're adding 4,000 square feet on the back end of that lot, and then splitting the lot. And that was one thing that they said, that you couldn't split on the merger deal. You cannot split, remove merged lots. So I think both of those things are in conflict with each other. In one case, they're talking about a lot could be split if they were non-conforming, and in another case, they say that merged lots, and they tell you that you're supposed to tell realtors, and it's supposed to be recorded everywhere that you are looking at or buying a merged lot. So if merged lots mean nothing, why bother to tell anybody? So anyway, if the house was built on lot 2 out there in the back, there wouldn't be any problem with us. I mean, but it would cost them a couple of $1 million to put that house in there. Because I have an example that just came out in the newspaper a week ago, and this gal is, her property is right at the base of where these lots are, and she paid $60,000 for the lot. She paid, the house cost her $130,000, so that's $190,000. And if she has spent more than $500,000 bringing up utilities, paving the road, and all the things that problems, and she's now in jeopardy of losing the house because she's run out of money, and nobody will loan it to her because she's retired and doesn't have an income coming in. So if she's only 200 feet from connections to the sewer and the water and the deals, whereas this lot up here at the top that they said that he could build on, and he could build on it, but it would cost him a fortune. He's not going to, and he's here to build and then leave like all the other homeowner builders did in our area. At least they were proud of their properties.
John, can you wrap it up for us, please?
Huh?
Could you wrap it up for us?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Well, we got two problems up there: fire area and parking. There's been 2 brush fires while I've lived there. In the late 70s, one burned right to the edge of McKnight Road. But the only thing that was lucky, it had started in Westlake and burned all the way across the face of the mountains over to us. And all the time, it took a night, and the wind wasn't blowing. It took a night and most of the early morning before it got to us. All that we had was one fireman sitting in a sedan at the corner that whole time. But when the fire reached the last ridge and started down towards us, here came the fire trucks. And one went up, one went down, and they parked in front of every house that faced the brush area. And they said they were only worried about one house up at the top, and they saved it, and they saved everything else, and that was the end of the fire. We had another fire in the 90s. Started at the golf course. In 30 minutes, it was over the top of the mountain. It was out in the brush area. It passed us by. We were lucky. But it went down into Hidden Valley, out Portero Road to Magoo, and then back from Magoo towards Malibu. But the wind was blowing, and those Santana winds is the correct pronunciation. When they just anyway, they usually blow from the north, so we're pretty well safe. Although I found that it mentions in here that we know that it's a fire area. All right, I lived up there for the first 6 years and didn't know it was a fire area because it was nice and open. But when I bought the house, it had farmers insurance. I had my car policy with Allstate, so I wanted homeowners with Allstate to make a package. So I did that. 2 months later, they sent me a check canceling me out because they said I was in a brush area. So I raced down, and farmers was still good, so I went and paid the farmers insurance, and I had that for a few years. Then I lost that, and the only fire insurance I can get now is California Fair Plan. So now I know it's a fire area, and not only that, the area has been having meetings of down at Stagecoach Inn with the fire department, talking about our problem in the fire area. We only have 4 accesses or ways to get out. One's over the mountain, and the guy at the top of the mountain has an electric gate that blocks you from getting there. One's over to Rosewood, the new area with the huge houses over there, but somebody's put a gate across there with a padlock, so you can't go that way. The other one is on the other side of us over there. I've forgotten the name of the street, but you have to go through private roads to get to them, to get zigzag through private roads to get to that road. So Venture Park is the only way to get in or out. So the more people we have in the area, the more houses we have, and we have a bigger problem. And the fire department tells us this. And also we have a parking problem. And Venture Park has curbs all the way up it because the water runs down and the curbs keep the water channeled into the street. But the city has banned any parking up to where they leave off. Although one side of the street is county and the other side is city, they have banned any parking on the street. Above there, it's the same way. If you park on the street, you've blocked one of the lanes. So we've gone up to, there's no parking really on Venture Park because it's so busy, you can't park on the street there. McKnight is a quieter street. It has no access to anywhere, so it's usually the homeowners, delivery people, and semis come up to us and then go back down with because they can't make any turns on the lower part of McKnight because there's a people's fence on one side and there's a telephone pole on the other side, so they can't make the bend. So they come all the way up to us and then go down. A lot of semis, for all the houses up above us, the semis park right in the street, right beside us, and they use motorized forklifts to take the materials up to the houses up above us. Anyway, we had a problem. There's 2 letters there. One neighbor decided that the street in front of his fence that's along the side of his house, it can park about 4 cars. That's about the only place in our area where we can park a car that's has enough width so that it doesn't bother anybody. He decided that there was a little triangle out there in the middle of the street that was his. So he put up fancy-looking metal, official-looking signs saying, if you park in this area, you'll be towed away. And so, at the time, the house across the street in front of me was being remodeled. It took them over a year to do it because they got stopped 3 times, once by planning and once by 2 other reasons. But the workers used to park along that fence, and he was giving them static. He was putting signs on their windows and all this stuff. They noticed that he was building something behind his house, and one of them went and checked with planning to find out, and he didn't have a building permit for him, and they said, well, you stop harassing us or we're going to report you to the county. Well, he stopped harassing until the house was finished, and they left. My neighbor that's sitting right behind me here had a car that he wanted to donate to charity. They wouldn't pick up the car without it being on the street. He couldn't park in front of his street because it's on Ventu, so he had to park next to the fence. This guy took out his license number, looked up and who it belonged to, sent him a letter threatening him with all kinds of things. That's what the letter is, one of the letters. And he took it to Linda Parks. Linda Parks had your department for traffic look into it, and that was the letter that came back. Now, on that environmental report, the parking said insignificant problems on parking. Every house on the street has huge parking areas on their driveways. And in fact, the person behind me has 6 drivers in his family, 3 generations. He can only park 5 cars in there and be able to get any one of them out at any one time. So he parks his truck over on my property because I have a little one section that I'm not using. But McKnight has no curbs, and so people are all over the place. And that area where that motorhome is sitting was a garden from the previous people that owned it. And he was in lawn care and all. That was his business. But he took it out. So he'd have more parking in his for his house, because he has another place over on the other side with a 2-car garage. And so this solution of a 2-car garage in front of a 40-foot wide house is a joke. They may be able to get their cars there or park them out in the front. Usually most people don't even use their garages except for storage or a recreation room. But any guests that they have are going to have to park in front of one of our houses, because there's no place to park in front of one of those places. Now, in closing, I started trying to figure out why he made the lot line on an angle. It parallels the house that's on an angle rather than the and there's you've got a section 8204-2.1 that states that property lines should be perpendicular to the street. But why he was able to I kept wondering, why is he making it on an angle? He can only build a house unless he makes it wedge shape. What the back property line is, and what the 47 feet out in the front of in the middle of the street isn't going to do him any good. So it's less than 45 when he gets to wherever the house would start to go to the back. And so I started thinking about that, and then I thought, well, later on, let's see, was it, I figured, well, one of the deals from the merging deal says that merging wasn't possible because it was less than 5,000 square feet. With that angle, there's a little over 5,000 square feet. If he went straight to the street, he's under 5,000 square feet. Something like 4,950. So I figured, well, he's going to build a house or start building a house and then get a simple line adjustment back perpendicular to the street per this section. Then he's got 82 feet left. He owns 2 more lots behind the house, other than lot 2 or lot 1. He could do the same thing, a lot in the back, a lot in the front, 40 feet down the middle. These would be 41 feet. And he could put 2 more houses in. In fact, he told the neighbor across the street he was planning on putting in 3 houses. So, if you looked at picture 12, That's the house that was a Quonset hut 3 years ago. Last month, there was a gal out there taking pictures of it for an tongue-tied here.
Architectural.
Archaeological, for architectural,
digest.
that's the word I'm looking for, architectural design is for some time coming in the future. And across the street will be these 3 bar houses that AT&T can use in their commercials for their bars. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time and your interest, sir. Okay. Our next speaker is Gene Sweeney. We have been at this an hour and 45 minutes. I don't know about the rest of you, but I could certainly use the facility. So we'll come back in 5 minutes, John, and we'll give everybody a chance to stretch. Otherwise, I'm not going to concentrate real well. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Reconvene the Planning Commission hearing. We have left off with our last speaker card, which is the applicant, Mr. James Sweeney. James? Your name and address, sir.
Hi, pleasure to be here. My name is James Sweeney. I live at 426 McKnight Road, Newbury Park, California.
Thank you.
I haven't been a resident of Ventura County for 45 years. I've been designing and building houses in Thousand Oaks for over 30 years. I purchased this property. Before I purchased this property, I went to planning and discussed in detail with Debbie Morissette about doing a lot line adjustment. Her exact words were, "This is a slam dunk. It should be 3 to 4 months, and cost about $10,000." That was 2 years ago and $30,000 later. Let's see here. My intentions were to build a 2-story house on the new configured lot. When my neighbor, Mr. Gaz, found out my intentions, he asked if I was interested in selling after the completion of the lot line adjustment. He was interested in buying the property. I said I would consider an offer, but we never agreed on a price. His intention was to build a 1-story house for his daughter if I sold it to him. So obviously then he had no problem with a house next door. But me building a 2-story house, he did and does not agree with, because I would be partially blocking his view from one window that is set back 30 feet from the side property line, and this is also living space. So if I did create a structure on the new parcel, it would be set back 35 feet away from his living space, actually. So it's not as crowded as it sounds. Let's see, I've also obtained a demo permit to remove the patio on the side of the house. This serves as no real function to me. I've been there about a year and a half, and I never really use it, because it is like, I'm sure you don't hang out on the side of your house either, but, and let's see here. And it is not a structural part of the house. And I plan on adding on to the existing house and redoing the exterior completely after I build the house next door. I also have a complete set of plans for the new lot ready to submit, and I think that's about it.
Okay, any questions of James? Commissioner Malter.
I just had a question about, if you look on the agenda on page 1, it says that James Sweeney is the appellant. That's incorrect, right?
That is correct. He is the applicant.
He is the applicant. So Mr.
Gaz's
name should be on there. Just okay.
That's a Mr.
Okay.
Or you might be looking at the original. I was originally the applicant.
Right, you were the applicant, but it said you were the appellant on our agenda, and I just wanted to correct that error.
Sure. Yeah.
On page 3, which is the first page of the staff report, it does indicate Mr. Gaz is the appellant. And we did try to make that correction on the error on the agenda earlier.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Sweeney? Commissioner Dukas?
Yeah, we were speculating as to what your plans were. You say you have complete set of plans for the house on lot 2. How many square feet is it?
It's going to be approximately about 2944.
And what kind of roof?
It's going to have a nice tile roof on it with a 412 pitch.
With a what? I'm sorry.
A 412 pitch. That's the angle
A pitch.
of the
Okay.
412 pitch for the tile roof.
And what are the approximate? Obviously, it complies with the setbacks, with a 5-foot setback and the 20 and the
Yeah, absolutely.
And the 15.
I already preliminary brought it over to planning, and planning already looked at it. They couldn't stamp it or anything, obviously, until the lot line. Approved, but they've already looked at it. Yeah.
And what are you going to do with the other house where you have to remove that structure?
Well, there'll be an eave, a retaining wall, a fence, some landscaping, and and then I'm going to actually re-stucco the whole house and turn it into more of a Spanish-looking modern house. Yeah.
How many square footage is that house?
It's approximately 2,200 square feet, and I plan on adding on about another 1,200 square feet to that.
100 some? You're
What's
going to
that?
add on. You're going to add on 100 some?
No, about 1,200 more square feet.
1,200
Yeah,
more.
it's lacking. It's lacking a dining room and a master bedroom. That's
So with the 22 and the 1,200,
be about
it'll be
3,600 square feet.
Okay. Would you, how would you characterize the neighborhood? Is it like a planned development? Is a lot of custom houses? Is there a lot of older homes?
Actually, I've been building houses there for 30 years. Yeah, and it's just a hodgepodge. You know, a contractor will go in and build like 5 of the same houses, and then mostly custom though. Mostly custom. I've probably built about 7 houses just in the Ventura Park area.
What do you think of did you see this packet?
No, I didn't.
Oh. I was going to ask you what your opinion was of the Quonset house that turned into this Architectural Digest.
Actually, that was my best friend that built that house across the street.
Nice job.
Yeah, good builder.
Are you familiar with how many other properties are similar to this where there's the potential for lot line adjustments to allow for, you know?
Not really. There's very few lots left in Thousand Oaks, period. There's only 3,000 lots, and most of them are people won't even let go of them, for one, and most of them are inaccessible, stuff like that. But there's very few lots left in Thousand Oaks, in the Thousand Oaks area.
Oh, I don't mean in all of Thousand Oaks. I mean,
but in that existing area, no, there's I mean, the lot lines that have been done are pretty much been done. This will probably be one of the last ones that get completed in there.
oh. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions over here? Mr. Malter?
I had one.
Sure.
If you're going to put the house back, how many feet you said from the front lot line?
From the center of the road, the house will be back 40 feet.
Will that permit you to have parking
Oh, absolutely.
in that area other than your 2-car garage?
Absolutely.
So your garage will probably be 40 feet back,
Right.
and so you've got almost 40 feet of driveway that you could park guest vehicles in?
Right.
No,
Actually,
that's
I'm
your
going to make it three cars wide. It's going to be actually 30 feet, so
Okay.
it'll have a 1,200 square foot driveway.
Okay.
Be ample parking.
Thank you.
So it'll park 5 cars.
Okay, no other questions of James? Thank you very much.
Sure,
Appreciate
thank
the
you.
information. I have received one other speaker card. Richard, did you want to talk on this subject or just talk to the planning commission about grading? Is that what you? Okay, fine. I just want to make sure I got you in the right spot here, all right, because you didn't mark it down. All right, as is the policy established by the supervisors, the appellant who brought this matter, Mr. Gaz, is to have the last say. Is there anything you'd like to say? Oh, that'll be fine. We're familiar with the community property laws. Please
Thank
state your name
you.
and address.
Deanna Gaz, spouse of Lou Gaz, and resident of the Ventura Park area for many years. It's a very unique area. We've enjoyed living there. However, several years ago, to the south side of our modest home, which many of the homes on McKnight are very modest, a builder, speculator, non-licensed contractor fella came in and built a home 5 feet from our property line on the south when he had 3 acres of property. He built the home right on top of us. I don't know if you have an exhibit picture we have taken. This was our lower patio. The builder at that time built this tall home that dwarfed us, took away all our privacy on the south side. My husband put in this little tiny veranda thing on our upper patio to give us a tiny bit of privacy. Mr. Sweeney, again, is another builder speculator. He's come into our neighborhood. He took a gamble. He took a chance when he bought this property for him to go to the county's planning commission, and they give him this, it's a slam dunk that he can come in and do what he's proposing. Again, build another home that's going to dwarf our home, take away a little bit of remaining privacy we have, with no restrictions on windows, the setback from the back of the property line. It just is totally unfair to us. And we ask that you just, take a good look at this and think about it. It's, like he said, it's a hodgepodge up in the Ventura Park area. That could be true. But when does it stop? When do people stop doing this kind of thing up there? It just doesn't feel right. You're going to perhaps open it up to everyone else in that gully and that hillside behind us. Anyone that has a little 25-foot lot or whatever, I don't understand all the particulars, but they can come all up and down that back hillside and do just what Mr. Sweeney is proposing. I mean, is this the right thing to do for that area? I mean, we'd like it to stay enjoyable, is all I can say. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Gaz? Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any follow-up questions of staff before I close the public hearing? They might have. Commissioner Dukas?
Well, I was wondering, and I'll just direct this question to whoever can answer it. The issues raised by Mr.
Yes.
John.
Sure. By my good friend John.
Yes.
Regarding the merging and the unmerging.
I'm so glad you asked.
Okay.
It's a very interesting area. First of all, I might direct your attention to page 17 of your packet. As you can see, it's a very interesting lot mixture there. The parcels that are shown here are actually the result of a program required by state law and undertaken by the county in the early 80s. In 1983, the legislature gave every county about a little bit more than a year to record notices of merger on parcels which had hitherto been merged by force of law. And to give you an idea, on page 17, right very close to the intersection of South Venture Park Road with the city of Thousand Oaks, which is the dark gray, if you just go a quarter of an inch to the left, you see some parcels stacked up there, little bitty parcels stacked up. Essentially, that's what the lot configuration was all over the Venture Park area. So what the law allowed us to do was to to merge parcels that were under common ownership. And so where you had common owner up to the provision of 1 acre. So if people owned enough parcels, as some of these larger ones were, to maybe make 1 acre, we could do it. And then to further illustrate, on page 94 of your packet, what you see and the sort of the shaded markings on this map is starting at the top. It shows a dotted 47, 46, 45, 44, 43. And then in the small print in the middle of parcel 1, it says unit HH, and below that it says NOM 84252. Now that means that these lots, these 5 lots, were merged by a notice of merger, which is NOM, as Unit H. And that is shown on the sheet that Mr. Umbenauer provided you as as parcel HH. Now, this is what cannot be unmerged. These parcels cannot be separated into 5 parcels again. This is 1 parcel. So, as 1 legal lot, and the determination made that parcels created by merger were legal lots, he may adjust his 1 lot boundary with another 1 lot. And in fact, the parcel 2, you'll see the little dotty numbers, it was also a notice of merger, same notice of merger as unit QQ, but the property owner at that time only owned 2 parcels, so we could only merge 2. So merger created the parcels and recorded it. They exist as separate legal lots with certainty, and you may adjust lines between them.
Could I make sure that that the appellants have this so that they can follow this line? See them madly taking notes.
Well, it's in the board packet here.
And so it's on stamped page 94.
Actually, I can put it up here too.
Yeah, the 2 pages I referenced was 17.
Let's just make sure that everybody is looking at this the same thing and can and follow this,
Okay, happy to,
So we're all on the same page.
so to speak.
because if not,
Can-
in the same lot.
Is there somebody at the booth that could,
But it's on the same page.
are we still operational in the booth?
There's somebody up there.
Can you,
This isn't responding to my forwarding. I'm just trying to get the exhibit up here for them. No, I don't want I want to go back on the slides.
there, oh,
Now it's responding. Thank you. Okay, you're doing that, right? I'm doing it now? Good, okay.
Okay.
Was it working before?
this is page 94 of your packet. And what I'm talking about are those fate numbers, starting at the top, 47, 46, 45, 44. And then where it says in the middle, notice of merger, HH, and then the notice, or unit HH of the notice of merger. So, and if you go to those papers, not everyone has those that Mr. Umbenhauer provided, in the long pages, his number, page 27, it does show HH is lot 43 through 47. And that is now one parcel. Then it shows the little lots 31, 32 are unit QQ, again shown on this list, and they are now one parcel. So what is being requested is a lot line adjustment between two parcels that were created by notice of merger. Oh, and then the other one we were looking at was figure 3.4, which is from the area plan, the Thousand Oaks area plan, and that shows the lot configurations essentially as a result of merger.
Okay, the other question that I have is, since Mr. Sweeney has a complete set of plans for the house, why is this process bifurcated?
Because this house is the project is only the lot line adjustment. That's all. The house does not require any discretionary action. Once the parcel is created, and the parcel is not created until the lot line adjustment records, and the lot line adjustment cannot record until the setback is established on the one lot, and the restrictive covenant that will which will restrict the back part of the parcel is recorded. Then he may submit ministerially plans for a structure. So we don't have any opportunity, and we haven't reviewed them. The counter has reviewed them.
I see. How is this lot line adjustment discretionary and not something ministerial then?
Our code, at the time that the code was revamped in the early 80s, and while I was here, I was not necessarily involved with that, made a distinction between lot line adjustments between lots which conform to their zoning and lots which do not conform to their zoning. And the determination was made that lots which do not conform to their zoning would be subject to a discretionary review, which would also include environmental review, which we do not have if you are starting with conforming lots and you're going to end with conforming lots. And so that's the way our code is structured. The next time we review our code, it may be structured differently because we're not creating any new parcels. We're just adjusting those that already exist. Lot line adjustments have a fighting status in the Subdivision Map Act and in our subdivision
Okay,
ordinance.
I confess, you lost me.
You want me to take
When
a
you
Okay.
started
All right, I'll
talking
go
about,
back.
hold on, I'll tell you where I got lost.
Okay.
It's when you were saying conforming lots, but these are non-conforming, but they're legal lots.
Right,
Okay,
right.
that's where I got lost.
Okay, legal we have many.
Tell me I'm not the
All
only
over.
person lost, please.
No, okay. Legal non-conforming lots are those lots which are undersized to their zoning, but were created legally at the time that they came into being in their current configuration. So they have all the rights and privileges of the zone, but they certainly don't have any expectation of any further subdivision because they don't have sufficient lot area. And in the county, we did go through a massive rezoning effort in the 80s, and to rezone areas consistent with the general plan, and in the case of, and also consistent with sort of the predominant parcel size that was in the area at the time, or the parcel size that the county would hope to see for any new lots that were created. So since we have so many non-conforming parcels, which are legal, it was certainly never the intention that they should not have the same ability as legal lots to adjust lot lines as parcels that are conforming.
Okay, then again, I need clarification. How then is this lot line adjustment discretionary rather than simply ministerial?
Merely because our code, our subdivision ordinance, makes the distinction between two different kinds of lot line adjustments, those between conforming parcels and those between non-conforming.
Thank
And
you.
that's really, I'm sorry, that's the best answer I can give you.
And that I follow and I understand. Thank you, that's all.
No, but I think county council wants to add something, sorry.
Yeah, the discretion in a lot line adjustment by state law and actually under ordinance code as well is very limited. A lot line adjustment is actually excluded from the Subdivision Map Act. And under the code, a lot line adjustment, for example, can never be subject to a map, a parcel map, a tentative map, a tract map, in this kind of situation where you have just two lots moving lines. And the code specifically says that your only quote-unquote discretion, which really is pretty minimal, is that you have to that the lot line adjustment has to conform to the general plan, any specific plan or area plan, and the zoning ordinance, then the building code, and that's about it. And additionally, any conditions put on a lot line adjustment are limited only to conformity to those plans and those regulations. So the discretion would be minimal, maybe in the sense of determining whether or not you find the lot line adjustment conforms to those. Some of them are pretty straightforward. For example, in the setback situation, you know, it either is or isn't 5 feet, so there's no discretion there. But maybe in the area of the general plan and those kind of consistency determinations or conformity determinations.
And that, I take it back. There is one more question about the lines having to be perpendicular to the street and whether it needs to be at an angle and whether it's going to be switched back. Could you answer any of those issues that were raised by?
I failed to note the code section that Mr. Umpenhauer cited, but that's a lot design when you're starting with a brand new lot, and in fact, that is the desirable, and it's also, I think, in the definition of what a lot is, because we're trying to figure out where the front of a lot is sometimes when we have goofy shapes and designs. It is, there would be no need to have to rectify it. The fact that it goes off at a slight angle is not problematic.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of staff at this time before I close the public hearing? All right. I am closing the public hearing. We now are open for deliberations. Commissioners, I do want to make it very clear, we are here to decide the appeal from the director on a lot line adjustment. We do not have housing plans in front of us. So, though we've taken testimony about it, that is not within our purview to decide whether or not he can have a house, because it's not here. So, what is your pleasure? Nobody has any pleasure? Discussions?
Well, I'll go out. My motion, instead of me making a motion and having it fail, I would not follow the recommended action and deny the appeal because, given the history of this area, and I'm very familiar with the area and its history, I don't think that it's wise, that it's good public policy to put blinders on and not look at the whole picture. And I think it's bad public policy to allow people to have their their sunlight and their privacy and the peaceful enjoyment of their own property destroyed by looking at this narrow, just looking at all slicing the picture up so thin that you just, into little tiny pieces so that you don't look at the whole thing. I think that there is the possibility of other, of this whole area, which is, I look at, it's probably 5 miles away from my house, but it's beautiful there. The mountains in that area are beautiful, and to see these two large, out of character with the neighborhood homes go up on this hillside, I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong, and so I would support the appeal, but I'm not making a motion. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from.
Any other discussion prior to a motion? Leah? Hit the button, Leah. There you go.
Thank you, Nancy, for clarifying the fact that this is not undoing a merger. I couldn't see how it was, and I was going to ask that question if Commissioner Dukas didn't. I know one thing. If this were a lot split, if they were taking a lot and splitting it and building a new dwelling on it, I would definitely support the appeal, because this is something that was not foreseen by the original buyers of this area. When you buy a piece of property, I think you look around and say, now, if there's empty land around me, what can be built here? What's going to block my view? Are there any lots that are still buildable or not? I think that anyone living in this area knew that these were buildable lots after the merger, that these lots could be built on. So I'm assuming that they could be. So, and I'm glad there's a clarification about no increase in the number of dwellings. I'm a little ambivalent at this point. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go.
Commissioner Bartels.
Well, I'll make a motion. I am also very familiar with Ventura Park, and it has changed a great deal in the last 20 years. I don't like being a technical body when we're dealing with emotion, but in this case we are being a technical body, and so my motion would be to deny the appeal and allow the lot split.
Clarification, you mean lot line adjustment?
I'm sorry. Yes. Terribly sorry.
That's clear. All right. This is a matter of record. That's the only reason I made it. Richard, any comments?
I would second that for discussion purpose.
Okay. I have a motion to follow the recommended action found on page 8 of the staff report denying the appeal. And I have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Dukas?
Well, I don't wish to be argumentative, but I do think that when people go in and they look at maps and stuff, and they look at standards and know that it's extremely difficult to build in areas where there's this huge slope and have these natural resources. So I think it's a reasonable expectation to think that's an unbuildable lot. I know somebody who bought a lot that happens to be the driveway to an Episcopal church in Thousand Oaks, and they own the lot, but it's how you get in and out of this school and this church. It'll never be built upon. So I don't think that faulting anybody for thinking, well, you knew these things could be built on. I would think, with planning standards that they would be unbuildable. So I don't find that a compelling reason. I do think, though, that we should look at maybe it's not within our purview on policy, and maybe we are more of a technical body, but I do think it's a bad idea to allow this to happen in unincorporated Ventura County.
Anybody else?
If I can just, I don't disagree. And I think the policy issue, much like with the Racket Club, this is like Lake Sherwood, this is like much of the leftover in Ventura County. And I have a concern, and my concern is that the City of Thousand Oaks, in its infinite wisdom and as was in our packet, is attempting to do design review in a very complicated area which is outside the city's limits. And so in this case, I'm going to do the Supreme Court thing and say, yeah, we're a technical review body. And I also agree that I think policy revision is a good thing. So I'll agree, but I'll still stand by the motion.
Anybody else? Let me just wade in a little bit. This is not the only area. We got the Santa Susana Knolls that were the Britannica lots in the 20s. And we have the issues up there with the fire trucks and all these other issues, the Oakview area, some of the other, as you mentioned, this is not the only area that we are having this, and I've seen at least 4 times since I've been sitting on here, and those issues of getting the fire trucks up, the parking, it is throughout this area. The fact is and I understand your frustration in the fact that lot line adjustments are exempt from the Subdivision Act, and for very specific reasons. That is to allow some flexibility, but yet keeping the conforming zoning in the area. Because of the issues of when the house were to come forward on the original parcel 2, there's a whole myriad of issues of why as John presented today, the expense of building it, the things that would be involved. And then we get into, okay, fine, did we now, as a government body, perform a taking? And then who pays for it? So again, I understand your frustration because, yes, it would be nice to have the county establish policy for Santa Susana Knolls, for McKnight Road, on and on and on, and then council can give us a 30-minute dissertation with how much that would cost us and what would be involved and all of that. But in this situation, it's just a simple moving of a line between two lots that belong to the same person, and it does gain the county that were parcel 2, lot 31 does not get built on or gets invaded because now we have a covenant. So as far as public policy, in one way, the county does gain because now we have restricted that area. So there's a benefit to the county at that point in time. So therefore, that's why I can support the motion. Hearing that, all those in favor of supporting the motion as presented, say aye.
Wait, one point of clarification. When
Yes.
you originally stated the motion, you just said to deny the appeal.
The
Was
recommend-
that
the recommend-
intended or to adopt all the recommended actions on
The
it?
motion was to accept all the recommended actions on page 8, and that was seconded. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Motion carries 3-2. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time and participating in the process today. Let's take about a 2-minute break because we have somebody who actually, Mr. Richard Baxter, wants to talk to us on item number 4, public comments. So, Richard, you are the first one in 12 years that's come up on number 4. So I want to hear you.
Brian Brennan.
That was 12 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reconvening the Ventura County Planning Commission. We do have a public comments under item number 4, and his name is Richard Baxter. And if he would please come to the podium and give us his name and address.
How you doing today, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Richard Baxter. I live at, or my property is at 11937 Konigstein Road, Upper Ojai, Santa Paula. The issues it's going to be a convoluted mess, but I'll do the best I can with my 5 minutes. I bought a piece of property from negotiations. I went in for about 6 to 7 months, bought a piece of property, closed around January 7th of 05. 37 acres of farmland, and I wanted to do organic avocados and use it partially for grazeland for some of our cattle. And we secured the property, and then the fun began. I went to Santa Maria because, as you know, around the 8th or 10th, we had that huge flood and tore up most of the roads, wiped out the irrigation systems, and I had to file a claim for calamity and whatnot. I've been going through the different motions, couldn't get any funding from FEMA because I didn't have a house in there. So I thought to myself, why not put a caretaker's quarter on this property, so in the event that we'd have another calamity, either fire or flood, I'd be able to make myself available for the FEMA grants and whatnot. So I decided to go green, which was my first mistake. Having been from other counties and knowing the care that they take to promote green buildings, such as Ventura City does, or Tulare County does, they actually have an expedited building process. So I come here with all this great knowledge that I think I have, go to the counter and ask them about green building, and they hand me a pamphlet for recycling. And as appreciative as I was, I already knew how to recycle. So I asked them, do you have any process for expedited building, for green building, this and that? And they looked at me like I was an alien. I explained to them about Ventura City and went to the website and printed out the page. They said, no, they did not. So I said, okay, that's fine. I guess I won't get any help here. I went ahead and got my architect. We designed the green buildings out of insulated foam panelings. We tried to submit that. No one in the building department knew about the things. They couldn't help me. I had to bring in CDs on specs and different codes to help them. And after 8 submittals in a year and a half, I finally got my plans. But because the price of steel, metal, everything went up, it was almost double what my original estimate was. So I had to switch to stick building. So there's my green issue. That's why I'm not building green. Now on to the next thing. I only had cleared, I got a grading permit to clear about a half an acre to put a flat building site in so I could see the city, Reagan Library, whatnot. I got that all done. I asked, how do I get this signed off? They said the quickest way is put down hydromulch instead of hydroseed. It's a little more expensive, but it has wood fiber in it, and you cover the land, and then it grows up. You're good to go once you get 80% coverage. I do what they tell me, and then I start clearing my other land, not even close, well, somewhat close. I mean, it's 37 acres. How close could you get? It's in the center is where my house is going to be. I start clearing land, and then all the neighbors start crying and complaining down in Cesar Road, which is a private road you might be aware of, which serves well over 6 to 7 residents. It's probably like 40 on this little tiny road by the, anyway, I look in the laws, and I'm being put under all these laws of I'm at the end of a private road, 1 mile in, 5 residents on there. I have to have all these turnouts and fire department, this and that. And the people who are complaining about what I'm doing live on a private road with no turnarounds, no ingress. Well, they have an ingress but no egress as is dictated in code, but people continue to be able to get permits and things for their property, which is very frustrating to me since I'm only got 5 people on our road. And they can do what they want. And my complaint here today, I guess the main one would be I have an open grading plan that I can't get signed off until I build the caretaker's quarters. So every time some person decides they don't like what they see in the view of their Topa Topa view, which is me clearing the hillside, restoring the property to its original glory, which was 37 acres of avocado in the 80s. And the aerial photos show that it used to all be avocados, but they got burnt in the fire that came through. I'm just clearing the land, and I can go down to 2 feet if I want, but I'm just blading down the top part because I tried clearing the brush the first year with chainsaw and wood chippers. It grows back within a year, that sumac does. And I almost started a fire 3 or 4 times. So I had to buy a water truck so I wouldn't start a fire. And I said, you know, this isn't working. So we started dozing it on down. Then the complaints started coming. So Joe Schooler, who is the grading department inspector, started coming to my property very frequently, even though I have no trespassing signs and a gate up. Came on my property, took photos, and said I'm in violation. I'm doing excess grading of my grading plan. I said, but I'm not. My grading is already done. Here's where my house is going to go. This is all around it. He said, well, no, you can't. I said, yeah, I'm a farm. Gave him my farm number, copy from the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Santa Maria, showed him I'm listed. I gave him the Right to Farm Act, showed him the laws that it's been in ag production. And so every time he comes there, he says, oh, they complain again. They charge me $105 to $150 because it's a site visit. I didn't ask him to come on my property. So now I had to put up chains. And I am a peace officer, and I told him, the next time you come on my property, you've been noticed, I will arrest you for trespassing. And whether or not it goes through and goes to court, he's still going to sit in handcuffs for a while until the cops get there, sheriffs actually. That's my bid on the grading department today. How can, as a planning department, who can do anything about this to where someone from the city or county can just come on your property and say, well, we're here to inspect a complaint that some guy has given you. And by the way, even though we didn't find any problem, because, yeah, you're right, you are agriculture, we're still going to charge you $105. I don't get it. So, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you say that you put something down? You put something down on the property to some kind of mulching?
Hydromulch, yes.
Hydromulch. What's that for?
Well, you can do hydroseed or hydromulch. You basically, if you have a slope over X amount of grade, you have to cover that so you get 80% coverage when it grows to keep erosion down, limit erosion, and you have to put silt nets and other things.
And was it the pile of that caught on fire?
No. That's separate. I must have been talking too fast. Part and parcel of that, away from this. I mean, hundreds of yards away from this, the whole hillside, you cannot walk through it. I mean, it's that thick up there with sumac and greasewood and wild sage. So I was cutting all that with chainsaws and then shredding it up, but I almost started a fire because it's so dense with brush. I decided this is not the way to go. I don't want to be the guy like the guy in 99. So my neighbors said, you might not want to be doing that, and they were right.
So you're clearing brush in order to put in avocado,
yes,
a house, and a caretaker's.
No, we're just putting in caretaker's quarter. We didn't plan on living there. We were just wanting to get the caretaker's quarter, which is another story in itself. They told me it could only be 1,200, but I found out later it could be 1,800. So square foot.
So you're having people contact authorities to come inspect to see what you're doing, or?
No. What's happening is I'm doing what I believe is in my rights to do as a farmer, which is to clear my land for livestock grazing and avocados, and we're also planting. We bought over 50 pounds of acorns for oak trees. We're planting, to reseed the area with trees. There's really none up there in that area. And people see me grading up there, what they consider illegal grading, so they call the grading department, who in turn has to come to my site, and they let themselves on my property, which I don't think, and I know a little bit about trespass laws. There's only certain people that can come on your land without a warrant. Most people think a surveyor is another one. The U.S. Department of Fish and Game definitely can. Those are the only two people that can come on your property without a warrant. So I have noticed them that when you come on your property, you will come with me, because I don't need them looking around at what I'm doing, which is I raise fish and crawdads. I raise a bunch of things, and I don't need them on my property wandering around hoping they can find a violation. I just don't think that's appropriate.
Okay, anything else, Richard?
Yeah, that'll do it.
Okay, just so you know, we can only take public comments. We're limited to how far we can do any actions, clarification. All I can have is direct staff, if there's any communication they can make with Mr. Baxter, and whether or not we should bring these policies back.
And unfortunately, it sounds, if I understood, that the inspectors that you were had provided notice to say don't come on my property were from the Public Works Agency, grading inspectors.
Grading,
is that
yes.
correct? Does the Planning Division, we're under the Resource Management Agency, we don't include Public Works They have their own agency director. If you haven't taken it up with Ron Coons, who's the agency director, that really would be the more appropriate way. We don't have any way to be able to compel, instruct, direct, Public Works agency to address your problem. You know, we could certainly tell them that it was raised at the Planning Commission hearing, this particular question and concern, but really your recourse will have to be with the Public Works agency, and Ron Coons is the agency director.
I think the reason I thought the planning department or commission, could help me in this was basically because of the process that I had to go through. I mean, the green issue, I thought you guys would have some direct...
Building and safety is within the resource management agency, and planning is also. So there's a closer link there. But if I understand your concerns about the difficulty in trying to get a greenhouse. But if your specific concern today regards the inspectors and the potential investigation of a violation, that really you got to talk to Public Works agency.
Yeah, no, I assume most of that would happen, and I'm working on that, and I tried to talk to Supervisor Bennett. But I thought the planning department, as far as the Right to Farm Act, do we even, it's,
well, the only thing,
Ventura County is a participant, but I don't see anyone up there even knows what I'm talking about when I tell them.
The only thing in the planning code about right to farm is that you are not a nuisance as a farmer if you have been operating as a farm for more than a year. That protects you from complaints from neighbors about spraying or whatever it is that you're doing. But the county's right to farm ordinance is actually administered by the Agricultural Commissioner's Office in Santa Paula. So that there is a code, and it is theirs. It's not the planning division's. Okay?
Okay. Did we give you some direction then? Public Works,
Agricultural Commissioner. Right.
Okay, and as far as people entering your property, I would suggest that you give county council a call and see who and how that should be done.
Okay.
Okay.
That'll work.
All right.
I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate your time very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay. Item number 6, discussion report by the planning folks, staff, director, quasi-director.
Kim is out of the office, as you know, the planning director, and Pat Richards is acting as planning director during her absence, and he's got a short list for you.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners. Just a quick update on a couple of status items. A quick update on a couple of status items. We've had a number of staff changes that have occurred, and probably the ones that affect the Planning Commission the most is the fact that we have our own Christine, who will be departing. I don't know if that was disclosed to you earlier.
Not officially.
Everybody's nodding. Okay. I don't remember Halen Alpert has been before the commission a couple of times. He will be exiting the office today on his way to New York City. Ooh. And so we wish him well in that regard. Pete Kaiser, supervising the enforcement section, is retiring on the 24th. The end of January seems to be very active for the planning division. We have coming on board, we have 3 new planners. One from the city of Oxnard, Nicole Donner, who formerly worked here. You may recognize the name as a case planner. And we have Kari Finley from the city of Ventura that is also a former county employee. So they all seem to come back to the county. And Christina Danko, who is an intern, or previously was an intern with the planning division, and her background is biology. She'll be kind of primarily our in-house biologist. So we have on board coming in to replace Halen Alpert, a lady by the name of Linda Windsor, also from the city of Oxnard. So it's turned out as fair play, and the county is now...
And Linda Windsor also is formerly at the planning division. So all 4 of our new employees are actually familiar faces to us. So they all come home.
And we rehired them back at their old wage scale, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Changing subject, Simi Valley landfill, notice of preparation is out for review. by law, there's a 30-day review time period for comments with regards to the notice of preparation for the EIR. Generally, comments will be back to us the end of this month in January. There is an interest in ongoing work effort to hold a scoping meeting in the city of Simi Valley. In all likelihood, that'll probably be an evening, and there's been discussions about holding it at the Simi Valley Senior Center, because we expect there to be a number of people who are interested in this particular project. It's a very large project for the county as a whole, but the NOP is out for that. As a follow-up to the NOP is the RFP. We have all these acronyms. So the request for proposals is being drafted at the present time. We are seeking and trying to find a list of qualified environmental consultants that have worked on landfills and have that landfill experience. We did this last time we went through the modification for the Simi Valley landfill, and we were very successful in getting a firm that had done several EIRs for landfills in the course of like a 2-year period of time. So they were very much up to speed as to dealing with all of the issues associated with landfills. The Grimes Canyon 3 mines EIRs seems to be an ongoing saga for us. We do have a couple of estimates at this point in time with regards to the status of those EIRs. The response to comments are virtually done at this point in time, and those are all now being put into final form. The draft final EIR will probably be released during the month of March. The IRC committee is scheduled approximately 3 weeks after the FEIR is put out, so that would be in all likelihood sometime in April, and we are trying to target and project to have this matter before the Planning Commission in the month of July 2008. So it's been a long road. So the final item that I had, there was a request by Mobile Home Park conversion applicant, and Nancy may know a little bit more of this, as a request to meet individually with the planning commissioners. And we have heard from a couple of the planning commissioners, but I wanted to, since I have you all here, be able to respond back to the applicant for the request. So if any of those are interested in meeting with the applicant, if you can just let me know, and so we can assist in setting up that meeting, or if you decline, I'd be glad to carry forward that message to the applicant.
And with that, I'd like to, if County Council, again, there's a policy that you may or may not meet individually, or are you feel prepared to give us any guidelines?
You know, I don't have that with me right now. I know the county council is handling this. I could give them a call real fast. Or have you already touched that with them?
Right. Well, the policy, it sort of shall or should avoid is what it said. Commissioners should avoid meeting, but it gives the option. But we also did, county council also did remind us that meeting sequentially with commissioners is no less a violation of the Brown Act than it is meeting with the majority of you, even though it's done seriatim. That's not a caution to you as much as it is to the representative of the applicant who wants to come forward. But as terms of the direction to the commissioners, if you may, if you wish to, but you may also certainly decline. Should avoid is not shall avoid, or shall not, is what county council said.
Just so you know, I've always had a concern, because if our job as the technical body is to review, and it's hard to bring 37 acres in here and look at it. It requires us, under our investigative duties, to go there to look at it. But if we're supposed to should avoid, I've always felt this conundrum that I'm supposed to make a decision in a vacuum, when in reality, that's not why I'm here. I'm supposed to have communal knowledge about things and the ability to investigate. Otherwise, it would just be a technical review as opposed to why we're appointed as commission. I'm just babbling about, it.
So-
To me, it's a huge conflict in duties.
Well, certainly you may visit the
No, I
site
understand.
and,
I
you know,
understand. But,
I thought that from the email that we received that he wanted to talk about the technical aspects of the conversion, which seemed like it didn't physically have to, it's not like where you actually physically need to go in order to get a good picture of the situation. Rather, it seemed more something that could be handled in text.
Well, again, I just get down to a starting of a chilling effect on our duties and obligations. And, you know, I know it's a gray line, and it's not a bright line, but I've always get concerned when I can't go to Richard's property and talk to him about it, you know, because it affects these other things if I have to make a decision, and as opposed to just receiving it at some point. So I'm not complaining, I'm just saying I'm beginning to run into this, what I feel is a chilling effect on what I'm supposed to be doing up here. So that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to put it out there. So
Very good.
that's what it is. What it is what it is.
This will be the first of its type
Sure.
project that you will see. And hopefully, since I'm writing the staff report, it will be adequately explained to you also in your packet when you receive it. But that doesn't mean that the applicant doesn't want to also have the opportunity, apparently.
What would you recommend? Is it something that can be explained in the staff report, or would it?
Well, I certainly believe it can.
Okay.
since I'm going to be- But I would not deign to suggest as to what you should do. But I certainly hope that we would not have done our job very well if we can't explain to you what the question, is.
Commissioner Berto?
I think the issue is twofold. One, Commissioner Dukas is raising the point that if an issue comes on the table in the public hearing and we need to move to a workshop to figure out what the issue is, that's the nature of the public hearing. We can do that. Commissioner Wester and I were part of the joy of Amundsen Ranch, and, well, that's right, Leo, you were part of that too. And my concern is, the way I understand disclosure is if I go to the site and get a tour of the site and the site is not adequately addressed in the public hearing, then there's a disclosure problem, and we may have to have a public hearing on the site. But, and that would be the way that we'd have to get around that kind of seriata meeting issue. But I agree, this sort of, well, you can't really have all the information because we're going to slap you. We're in that sort of netherworld right now. So in this case, we're talking about a policy decision. We're talking about owners in very adversarial relationships with their tenants, and I would much prefer to begin that process in a public hearing, and then if we need to have a mediated dialogue workshop as our public hearing, I'll defer back to the former chair, and he can be in charge of that.
Oh, thanks. So anyway, just our concern. So that's why that's why I said no, because I was afraid I was going to be crossing too much of a line. And if you want to carry that back to the owners, it's not that I don't desire the information. I'm just a little concerned about crossing that line. Okay. All right. Anything else from the staff? Yeah. Okay. And it's not for not wanting to. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. The truth shall set you free. Yeah.
Just, what about a replacement for Mr. Kaiser?
Oh, boy.
I mean, since he just took that job in December.
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months. Well, we have a call into Todd. Let's see if we can. One thing Kim is very committed to doing is to getting that job filled as quickly as possible, because she was doing the job while it remained empty, and she does not want to do that again. We do still have a list of candidates, so she's going to go back over the list of candidates that we have and look at it very closely, and hope to be able to, perhaps re-interview people and talk to them, and perhaps find somebody in there who we would be able to entice to take the position.
I'm just sorry to see Pete retire.
Yes, so were we.
Did
Did you say he's leaving the area or just
No,
retiring?
no, he's just retiring from county service. He has indicated that he plans to set up some sort of business on his own, and probably out of his home. He has young children and wishes to spend more time with them.
So he wouldn't be available in a consultant
Probably
situation?
would. Well, to mean to the county?
To bridge whatever we need to bridge time-wise to find a replacement?
He would be, but quite frankly, he hasn't spent really enough time in the job. We have Todd, who is already available to us and has been doing some consulting and training for us. So we might look to Todd in the interim, in the very short term.
Okay. Pat, it's been, excuse me, I was going to make a comment to Pat. It's been a long time since I've seen you in a similar situation, Pat. Pat and I go back to Moore Park.
Yes. So do I. Yeah, Pat's the one who trained me. So the sin visited back on here.
So you're responsible.
Yep. He was my first planning director. Yep. Anyway, he left right after I got appointed. So, anything else from the planning staff? Okay. Anything from the commissioners? If not, then I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting in the name of Christine. And that's your best. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll miss you. Take care. This meeting is now adjourned.